Hey, this is David G from the arsonistgopher.com. I want to share something pretty cool with you today. So, for those familiar with gops, maybe for those not familiar with gops, gops is a lightweight tool for connecting to Go processes and getting some very useful information. And that can look like memory information, CPU profiling, and some information really useful for diagnostics like stack information and so on. What I had a requirement for was whilst building a long-lived service, I noticed memory creep, and I kind of suspected a memory leak of some description. And what it turned out it was, but it wasn't a memory leak at all. It's just that there was a number of Go routines running, and there was an organic kind of feel of and waves of growth and shrinkage, and over time it stabilized out. So what I did to see all of that using gops was I extended the agent code on board, which serializes the memory statistics into JSON, then transmitted it to the client, and then the client deserialized that and placed it into InfluxDB. And then once it was in InfluxDB, I could use Chronograf or Grafana and build some dashboards and observe that. And over the period of 2 or 3 days, I observed the long-lived service doing its thing, and was quite pleased to see that there was no memory leak. And I thought this might be interesting to share with a number of you. So what I've done, I've wrote up some instructions in terms of how to do this, and the idea is that there are no destructive changes that happen to the current version of gops. This is literally a patch, so thank you to the way that the package has been built. The easiest way to do this was via a patch. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a go get and go and get the gops code from Google. What I'll do here as well, some of these are not real time. I'll shorten the video down just to cut down on background noise and white noise. Fantastic stuff. Okay, so we've now got gops. What I'll do now is I want to show you this. Now, the current commit is what I'm working with, but in the future it's not to say that more commits won't be added, so we need to check out the right version, and then obviously we can do like a forward and make sure the thing's forward compatible. Now, this one is guaranteed to work. If you don't follow this commit, I'm not sure what the result's going to be. So it's always worth trying, and maybe you can just add the patch anyway. But the safest thing to do is check out this particular version. So gops and then git log. Now you see the 4977 on the end. This has been committed by Rakil. That's the one we want checked out. Now, I'm not going to check it out again, but what I am going to do, I'm just going to create a branch. So something like git branch influx and then git checkout influx. So if I now do git branch and then git log, you'll see that obviously we are not git log, we're exactly where we need to be. So happy days. Right, next step then is to go and get my code. Now, my code is the best thing you can do is navigate to the directory manually. I don't know what went wrong there. Sorry, I'm just trying to do some copying and pasting. So there we go. And then make directory arsonist gopher. Now I happen to know the directory on my machine is already created, so you're going to see a warning from this. And change into that directory. I'm going to make sure that gops isn't there, which it isn't, so that's fine. Just to show you I'm not cheating and all this is absolutely real, I'm now going to clone in my version of gops. And again, remember what I'm saying here, the reason I'm forking this is to get hold of the patch file and not to actually build it in my directory. The patch file is there. You see that 001 added mems.export function for influxdb.patch. Excellent stuff. Okay, so we've now got the patch file. And what I'm going to make sure we do is, and the reason my screen's obviously split so I don't have to keep changing directories all over the place, I'm going to apply the patch. I'm going to apply the patch from my directory to the Google directory, and hopefully this works. Added memstat function for InfluxDB. Now if I do this, git log, you'll see the last log entry was mine, and this is where we added the memstat function. Fantastic stuff. So far, so good. Now, what we don't know is that this system has all of the dependencies required to build. So I'm just going to do a dep ensure, and what this does, it goes off obviously to the web and grabs all of those packages. Fantastic stuff. And that's probably changed the lock files. Yeah, So Go package lock and what have you, and InfluxDB's been vendored. That's great stuff. Right. The next challenge then is to build the application. And this, now recall, is the modified version of the application. Now, if I do gops and then help, you'll see that memstat export is the brand new function which my patch has added to the code. So we know all that is looking good. Now, the next thing to do, if you don't have InfluxDB already, we're going to go off and get that. So I think I already have InfluxDB. So far, so good. CD go path source github.com influx data InfluxDB. And what we're going to do, sorry about this, I keep randomly doing different things to the screen. Going to make sure we do the dep ensure as well. It shouldn't take too long. There we go. Fantastic stuff. And then what we're going to do is we're going to install InfluxDB to make sure it handles unsigned int64s. Now, the reason we have to do this is because InfluxDB doesn't come with this by default. It's behind a build gate. I think the reason being that Chronograf and Grafana and the other tools don't support unsigned int64s all the way through yet, so they've gated that up until they've got absolute compatibility between all of their different products. That shouldn't take too long. So what we're going to do now then is, I bet you I haven't done that, have I? There should be a file. That's the wrong one, in the Google Gops, which probably now will be in mine. Am I on the right screen? Yes, I am. InfluxDB config toml is a file I'm looking for. So that file is in your directory, and what we're going to do is we're going to run InfluxDB with that particular configuration file. And this configuration file has got a load of defaults in there and some very, very basic configuration items. So that's the line we need to run Influx. And hopefully all of this works. And there we go. So now that's InfluxDB running, and it's running natively on my machine, not in a container. And the next step is for us to go off and grab Chronograf. I use Chronograf fairly regularly, so I'm imagining everything is up to date. And we're now going to run Chronograf in a container. Whoops, sorry, that's not going to happen. Let me just tidy it up because that looks like a mess, doesn't it? Don't like things like that hovering around. Okay. So Docker PS, okay, great. So Chronograf is now running as well. What we need to do now is we need to go off and create the database for gops on InfluxDB, and we can use Chronograf to do that. So let's do this. Localhost quad 8. That's fine. Now the connection string, because this is running a container, if we refer to localhost, it just won't work because localhost is the container. So this is the IP address of this test machine, and that should work. And what we see, we've now got the connections. We can actually go down to here and we see the connections connected. Fantastic. If we go to Data Explorer and actually do a screen refresh, that's particularly interesting. The gops database already exists, and that's because with this particular version of Influx, I've already created the database. Now, I'm going to run that anyway. I know it's there. I know it exists. What we're going to do here is we're now going to go off and build the Hello World example that is part of Google's gops. So we're going to go in here. We're going to go and build that. And what we should have is the Hello application. And if you are curious as to what's in Hello and you haven't read the guidance notes, sorry indeed, let's look at the source code. And all this does is it imports the gops agent, which, don't forget, we've now patched. We then start a listener, and the thing sleeps for an hour. So after an hour, this will naturally exit. But what it gives us a chance to do is actually look at what the runtime's doing. And all we're going to do, we're just going to run that. We're going to say, hey, run as you are. And then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to grep out the PID, because we're going to need to know that so we can connect up to it. And 98286 is the PID that we're interested in, which is kind of fairly interesting. Now, I've got a feeling I'll have to change direction in a moment. So let's do that now. So let's go to gopath source github.com, Google gops. We should have the newly built gops client here, which we indeed do. So we're just going to run help again here, and it's memstat export is what you're going to need to know. And if we actually run that, memstat export tells you exactly what you actually need to run to get this connected to InfluxDB. So we're going to run that. We need the PID, and we've already said below that was, I forget. So let's get rid of that. Let's just go and get that again. And then it is, nope, sorry, wrong one. Hello, that was the one. And then 98286, and just make sure we've got this in the right order. 98286. Fantastic. And then I think it's a connection string, which it is. We know this is running on localhost. There's no HTTPS. The port is 8086, and I know that from the configuration file. And then we have to give it the database of InfluxDB. All I've done, I've just run that once, just to post in. I don't see any errors. And what this does, it runs the gops client once, it gets some statistics, and it pushes it into InfluxDB. Now, what we're going to want to do is we're going to keep this on a loop, and by using the watch application, and by default it's every 2 seconds, it just runs this every 2 seconds. And what will happen is all the information collected from gops will be inserted into Influx with a unique timestamp. So now if we actually go back into Chronograf, and we actually go here, and we go here, and we start clicking on some fields that have been exported, we can look at lookups and heap released and objects in use and all these really cool things. And then hover over, we can now see live statistics being exported from gops into InfluxDB and being shown by Chronograf, which means then we can go to Grafana and build some dashboards. And I've done this typically over the period of 2 or 3 days just to see what my applications are doing when they're under severe stress. So thank you for your time on this video. I'm hoping all of this has been particularly interesting and you followed the steps all the way through. Any issues or any other additions that you'd like to see from an InfluxDB perspective in gops, feel free to send me an email or raise an issue on the repo, which is github.com/arsonistgopher/gops. Thank you very much. All the best. Take care.